Welcome everyone from what was sunny Queensland, Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. Thanks for joining this Business in Japan presentation. Welcoming Gary here today.
Thank you for having me.
Gary's actually been living in Japan over 2 years now, 2.5 years, something, right?
Yeah, almost 3 years, about 2.5 in Okinawa, 2 months so far in Tokyo, and greetings everybody, konbanwa.
All right, so people are probably going to continue to join, but we're a few minutes over now. So let me start by introducing Business in Japan in case anyone doesn't know. Business in Japan is a 15-year-old community and group on LinkedIn. We have 78,000 members. About a third at any one time are based in Japan. And everyone is joining, sort of self-selecting that they have an interest in doing business or just a professional life with or related to Japan. So we try and keep that group different to other groups on LinkedIn which are full of spam, which is difficult because that's what 90% of people want to do. They want to broadcast something. So at the very least, we keep it on topic. Promotion, because the whole goal is for people to actually meet, connect, learn about business in Japan. But we try not to make it only that, and we try to encourage people to connect with each other, not necessarily visibly in the group, but anyone can message anybody in the same group on LinkedIn if you didn't know. So the various events we do, the clubhouses we do, are all about getting people together and getting a chance to build rapport, understand what people do, how they can help each other, and see if there's any synergy with a primary goal of helping yourself, each other, but a secondary goal, let's say, of helping Japan. And part of that, of course, is events where we help educate people around subjects to do with Japan and business. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking a subject which I have some interest in and have done some study on, but not actually done myself much. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from Gary his, in a nutshell, presentation on how to do business, how to sell on Amazon, Japan specifically. And Gary is going to also let you know about a 2-day workshop that he's got being held in Japan. And so anyone here who is selling on Japan, on Amazon Japan, and interested in this to see if they can accelerate their business in Japan on Amazon, or someone who's considering how could they sell things on Amazon Japan. And this summary gets you started, gives you confidence that you could do it. Then there's also an in-depth 2-day in-person workshop and networking, mixing opportunity in Tokyo. Unfortunately, I can't be there, but thank you very much for this opportunity, Gary. Sorry, I was going to actually also introduce Matt, who helps me with events, but is taking more and more of a role in helping with business in Japan. And if anyone's interested in connecting with any of us here, myself, Gary, I would also encourage you to connect with Matt. He's a great guy. He's just left Japan, like myself, but very connected and in the startup scene related to Japan.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, Gary.
Hi, everyone. Fake background here too, by the way. So I'm actually not in Japan. Anyway.
Yeah, that's my beautiful memory of living for 10 years on the Meguro River. Well, that's Nakameguro, I guess. I just love that. That's my favorite. Now is my favorite time in Tokyo specifically.
Nanami season.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is Zoom, and it's one where you can take your mic off, but if you've got noise going on, we do ask that you turn your mic off, please. But if you have comments, you can drop them in chat, or you can, at the right time, put your hand up, or you can take yourself off mic if you're careful not to interrupt what's going on. And we look forward to hearing a bit of back and forth to learn about selling on Amazon Japan. So Gary, welcome. Thank you very much. I must thank Burak for introducing you.
Burak? Yes.
Burak is someone based in Kansai, I believe, a Business in Japan member for some time, who, after succeeding on Amazon Japan himself, also has a service where he has a done-for-you service, or more likely a I can tweak your listings type service. So he introduced Gary to me.
Yeah,
so Gary,
I believe he runs an agency. He helps with sellers with their marketing on Amazon. And
right,
yeah,
a very important part.
Yeah.
So Gary, tell us about you. How many we got in here? About 27 people in here now. Tell us who you are and what you do and your connection to Japan, and what we're going to listen to tonight.
Excellent. Thank you so much again, Jason and Matt, for having me. I'm very excited to be here today with the BIJ community. I'm from the U.S. originally, and I've been living, my family and I, we moved to Japan right before the pandemic. We ended up staying in Japan because previously my family and I were living in Shanghai, China, and we couldn't go back because obviously of the whole COVID fiasco. I won't give you my life story, but we lived in Okinawa for about 2.5 years, and currently we're in Tokyo. I've been selling online on Amazon for a number of years, since 2016, and I started selling on Amazon Japan when I was in Okinawa. I'll be honest with you, I'm embarrassed to say I don't really speak Japanese. I'm maybe at elementary, first grade level. My son is 4, he's entering kindergarten. I mean, I think he's going to surpass me pretty soon. So I think I don't know like the level of Japanese in the room, but to sell on Amazon Japan, you don't necessarily need to speak Japanese. That's one thing. I think the beauty of selling on Amazon is, you can work from home, you can work remotely, and even if you have a full-time job, which I did before I went into Amazon full-time, you can do this in the evenings, the weekend, as a side hustle. But obviously, it takes work. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, so to speak. So, I was talking to Jason about the opportunity here in Japan because Amazon Japan is 4th biggest marketplace in the world for Amazon. But at the same time, there isn't too much competition in terms of number of sellers in Japan. I do have a slide deck that I'm happy to share with you guys, but on a high level, I wanted to share with you guys just 3 things today. Number 1 is the opportunity to sell on Amazon Japan, who it is for. The second thing is we're going to share the initial steps it takes to get started on Amazon Japan. And the third thing is, as Jason mentioned, I am organizing an in-person conference 2 days here in Tokyo, April 4th to the 5th. It's coming up very soon. I know it's 11th hour, but for people that might be interested, I'm happy to share about that. So that's what I had in store for the game plan today. How does that sound, Jason and Matt?
Yeah, I think it sounds good.
Okay.
We've got a question already there from Alex.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to incorporate that.
First
into
product I sold on Amazon.
Yeah.
I'll give you my e-commerce story because that's relevant to this. I first got started selling on e-commerce in 2005. I was in the States at the time. I sold on eBay, and I started off selling women's shoes. I bought from a local importer in LA, which is my hometown, and my first product was women's shoes. And it was good in terms of profit margin, but it was a nightmare in terms of sizing and return. So I'll put it that way. That was the first product back in the day on eBay. First product on Amazon actually was 2016 Apple Watch band. I had a business partner at the time. Apple Watch first launched around that time, and we created some really cool designs that Apple didn't have. And we sold about we clocked 6 figures in the first year, 6 figures US annually, selling in US. But afterwards, my partner and I, we decided to go separate ways, but that's the first product that we did on it. So I hope that helps, guys. All right. Should we go into the slides?
Yep, let's get into it.
Yes, please.
All right. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat or raise your hand, and Jason and Matt as well. I like to keep this interactive. This is like my third webinar of the day, so interaction that will help keep me going. All right. And thanks, Alex, for the question. All right. Screen share. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So welcome again, guys. I'm just curious. Is anybody in the room already selling on Amazon? If you are selling, can you say yes in the chat if you are selling? Because I just want to know what everybody's level is at today. Because this presentation normally I give to more experienced sellers, but I'm happy to adjust the the content level depending on the experience level in the room, just so I know who we're talking to. So Daniel is selling. Excellent. Daniel, could I ask, are you selling in the US, Amazon.com, or Japan, or Europe? Just so I know, because Japan is one of the most underrepresented marketplaces for Amazon. That's why I say it's one of the best kept secrets about Amazon selling, because not too many people are even considering Japan. All right. Okay, Daniel is selling in Amazon, Spain, Europe. Okay, very okay. So, and okay, interesting. We have some more replies. Sorry, I'm just a little fascinated by the chat. Okay, so Daniel selling in Japan only. Excellent, very interesting. So, love to get your thoughts about this as well. Jean Ren says very casual Mercari seller here. So I think Mercari is more like secondhand products. Like my wife just bought this like school uniform like suit for my son on Mercari. Daniel says actually Amazon Spain and Europe. Okay, and Ascard said registered, and Verena says that starting to sell crap. Okay, excellent. So we do have some people with e-commerce experience, which is great. All right. So first, I wanted to share with you the market opportunity, because Japan is Amazon's #4 biggest marketplace, but almost nobody is selling in this. Recently, we had a live webinar where 230 people registered, and I polled them which Amazon marketplaces are you currently selling in. So out of the 230, 173 are selling in the US. Well, that's kind of obvious because the US is the #1 biggest marketplace. 69 people in UK, 36 in Germany, and only 13 people selling in Japan. Out of 230, that's only about 5%, which is very low. Because remember, this is the 4th biggest marketplace. And there's more people selling in smaller markets like, like Spain, Italy, Canada, Mexico, etc. That's why I think, maybe it's, like the real estate analogy, right? I mean, Japan is a hot market, but not too many people are even thinking about investing in it. So that's why I think it's, kind of like a blue ocean opportunity. The competition is low, but the marketplace is one of the biggest in the world. All right. So, I think it's a little ridiculous, right? I mean, it's the 4th biggest market, but almost nobody is considering it. Okay. Obviously, selling on Amazon, Japan, there's a lot of barriers. Maybe the people in this room, they're more, experienced with Japan, but for many people in the English-speaking world, there's a language barrier, there's a cultural barrier. There's also certain regulations that Japan has in terms of importing laws requiring you to have an import of record. You can't just do it yourself if you're not physically based in Japan. And then there's also issues with compliance and also creating a Japanese listing. So I wanted to help address some of these challenges today if you are thinking about selling in Japan, and also share with you about this opportunity. And, there's like some stuff that's intimidating about Japan, like, certain foods like, natto and like those crazy guys that dress up in like, the anime costumes, etc. All right. Okay, so today's game plan, we're going to learn about the opportunity selling in Japan, we're going to share the 7 steps to start selling. And then also I'm going to quickly mention at the end the in-person conference in Tokyo happening April 4th to 5th if you are interested in learning. All right. So I've already introduced myself. Thanks so much, guys, for that great introduction. And okay, just some quick numbers, guys. So you guys understand the size of the marketplace. I think the people in this room understand the Japan economy and like the size of the market. The important thing is for the global Amazon marketplaces, Japan is number 4. Okay, and Amazon.com Japan recently has overtaken Rakuten in terms of the number of visitors. So technically, they are the number 1 base marketplace in terms of visitors. But just to be transparent, I understand Rakuten is still number 1 in terms of sales volume. So they're pretty much neck and neck, but Amazon is gaining a lot of traction. You know, being here in Tokyo, I'm seeing Amazon shipment boxes everywhere. You know, when people take out their, paper box recyclables, that day of the week, and there's lockers. The Amazon storage lockers are in front of like the pharmacy, and then also, I moved into a Tokyo apartment a month ago. I was able to furnish almost everything on Amazon, fast shipment, like same day delivery here in Tokyo. Even when I was living back in Okinawa, which everyone knows is a remote island, that's like one of the most remote delivery locations for Amazon in the world. But I was able to survive the pandemic. I was able to buy toys for my son, get books for him, clothes for my wife off Amazon, and cooking gear for me to kind of geek out on because I love to cook, and I was able to get all that stuff off of Amazon here in Japan. So I mean, Amazon is making a big splash in Japan, as you guys probably already know. All right, here's some proof.
Sorry,
yeah.
Can I just interrupt there quickly?
Yeah.
So you mentioned you've sold on eBay already, you've sold on Amazon. What about Rakuten? Have you had any
I have not.
success there, or have you tried?
I have not tried. The reason is because I don't speak Japanese. I'm totally transparent. My Japanese is a very elementary level. Rakuten is an entirely different beast when it comes to the whole navigation system. The beauty about Amazon is when you sell on Amazon, Japan, Seller Central is entirely in English. Amazon.com, their format on the website, it's very similar to the US English-speaking site, so I'm already familiar with that. And then on Amazon.co.jp, there's also a language setting, so I can switch into English. I can do my product research in English, and then I can have that translated into Japanese. So just to be totally transparent, I have not sold on Rakuten.
Yep, sure.
All right.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so just some proof that some brands are making money on Amazon Japan. This is not my Seller Central. This is coming from one of my friends that is he's a Japanese expat. He's lived in Japan 30 plus years. He's based in Hamamatsu. His name is Nick Cat, and he sold 7 figures, over $1 million revenue on Japan for a number of years. He's working with certain brands to help them sell into Amazon Japan. So he worked with the U.S. brands recently, and they were able to sell about 125 million yen in 13 months' time, January 1st, 2022 to January 30th, 2023. Obviously, your mileage may vary, guys, but this just goes to show that brands are having success on Amazon. Obviously, they have to localize their listings, product market fit. We'll talk more about that, but just to let you know, there is, people are seeing success here in Japan. All right.
Sorry to interrupt again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to get these questions out as I come through, I think, just to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
So Gene is asking, why do you think Amazon appeals to the Japanese online consumer better than eBay, which never seemed to take off here?
eBay, eBay is kind of like, they were the number 1 player in the mid 2000s, which is almost like 20 years ago, but they tapered off. They kind of went a different direction. There were a lot of very cheap products sold. Amazon, I think the biggest thing is once they open up their Fulfilled by Amazon service, just the fact that you can outsource all of the warehousing, the fulfillment, and then Amazon's very efficient logistics system. They deliver very quickly, very efficiently across the whole world. I think those could be some reasons why. And then also Amazon has their Prime membership program, and they have trust built in. They have credit cards, customer credit cards saved. So all of these reasons why I think Amazon has succeeded, whereas eBay has not. eBay has lost a lot of market share. I mean, they're behind even Walmart now. So they've diminished quite. Yeah, Marina asks, is eBay still alive? They're just barely, I would say. I mean, yeah, just barely. So, okay, good question. Thanks, guys. Keep going. All right, I wanted to share some numbers, especially about the size of the competition or the lack thereof, because remember, this is the number 4 biggest Amazon marketplace, but in terms of the active sellers, it's actually only number 8. All right. If you look at the number of sellers, guys, active sellers in US, 1.1 million, UK, 201,000. But smaller marketplaces, right? Like Italy has 216,000. France, India, Spain, all of these have more sellers than in Japan. In Japan, there's only about 173,000 sellers. Okay, so that means there's about 8 or 9 times less sellers in Japan than in the US. So that means that there's more room, and it's more likely that your competitors are not selling there yet. So I think that if you just look at this, the numbers tell you there could be a lot of opportunities for sellers that are willing to sell into Japan. And in addition, I learned recently about half the sellers in Japan are Chinese sellers. I'm not going to, discriminate against anyone. And, my family is ethnically Chinese. But at the same time, Chinese business people, they tend to move fast. They break things, and they worry about the details later. So if you look on Amazon Japan, some of the things, they're not very well written. They're not very well translated. And they're still entirely English. So the level of competition could potentially be weaker than other marketplaces because of the lack of attention paid by some of the competition. So long story short, I feel that there's less competition and weaker competition in Japan, Amazon, than other marketplaces. Okay. All right. Number 4 is in terms of number of reviews. Everyone knows that reviews are very important in terms of building trust, increasing your conversion rates, right? There's the average number of reviews in Amazon Japan. It's actually a lot lower than in Amazon US and Amazon EU. And that means that if you are already selling in another Amazon marketplace, you can actually carry over your existing reviews. Let's say in Amazon US, if you have 500 reviews, you can carry them over when you move into Amazon Japan. So what does that mean? Let's say, in the US, if you had 500 reviews, maybe, you're in the middle of the search page. There's people with 10,000 reviews, 5,000 reviews, 1,000 reviews, etc., right? But when you start selling in Japan, those same 500, that could be at the top of the page in terms of the reviews, because the competitors maybe only have 50 reviews or 10 reviews or maybe like 100 reviews, right? So the review threshold would give existing sellers an advantage when you come in. So one example here is with diapers, or in Australia, I believe you call them nappies. This big brand in the US, Pampers, you can see that their global listing has about 70,486 reviews, but in Japan, they only had 13, right? So you can see like the number of reviews will be a lot lower, so it's easier for sellers to compete.
There's a question from Steve about e-commerce has been growing in Japan for years. It appears like cross-border e-commerce has been declining as a percentage. What do you think that would be the case?
I'm not an expert in cross-border e-commerce. When we talk about selling in Amazon Japan, like what I do is I actually import the product. I source from China, I import it into Japan, and then I send it into Amazon's Japan FBA warehouses, and then they fulfill them locally, domestically. So we're not doing like, AliExpress. We're buying something and getting shipped from Shenzhen to Tokyo. It's actually shipping, domestically within Japan. So I'm an expert when it comes to cross-border e-commerce. Sorry, I don't have a great reply to that, Steve.
And then Daniel's asking, why would you say there's less competition in general? Or are you referring to particular product categories? What about competitiveness amongst categories? Any particular categories stand out, etc.?
That's a good question. I'm not as, I mean, I cannot call myself an expert in Japanese business culture. I mean, people like Jason, people like Matt, a lot of people in the room, they know Japanese business culture far more than I do. But I do know, I've lived in China for 11 years. Um, the entrepreneurial mindset in certain countries is like on steroids, like in China, like, in certain places in Shenzhen, people joke around, everybody's selling on Amazon, even the taxi driver, even the barbershop guy, everybody's selling on Amazon, right? But in Japan, I tend to find that the culture is a lot more conservative. People want more steady jobs. They're less inclined to take risks. I have an assistant, a Japanese assistant, college graduate, really, really sharp guy, great English. He works a day job. He's kind of like a clinical salary man here in Tokyo for a tech firm. He wants to branch out, into his, e-commerce business. His parents aren't really supportive in terms of that, right? They want him to have a stable job, etc. So culturally, that could be one reason why you see fewer, people venturing, entrepreneurs in Japan. And everyone else in the room, feel free to weigh in if I'm wrong. That could be one thing. The other thing is what we mentioned earlier, the language barrier for, Westerners, the cultural barriers, and also there's issues with importing, regulations, etc. We'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes, guys. But that is my, anecdotal reason why there's fewer competition in Japan. All right. Okay, let's keep going, guys. Okay, another big advantage of selling in Japan is lower PPC costs, lower marketing costs. Amazon PPC costs in the US have gone through the roof. I think I read somewhere Amazon, like their advertising division is like one of the biggest, advertisers in the world, because sellers in the US, they're just pouring money hand over fist into marketing, into advertising feeds to get product placement at the top of the page. Japan, on the other hand, the average PPC cost for Amazon is significantly lower. We're seeing average cost per click as low as 29 cents US per click. This is unheard of compared to the US. So you're gonna enjoy lower marketing, lower PPC costs if you sell in the US. I mean, in
This is a big one
compared to the US.
This is the big one,
Yeah.
I think.
This is huge. I mean, like for business owners, Jason and I were chatting about some of the pros and cons about selling on Amazon. Obviously, there's costs involved. Probably your biggest expense after your inventory cost is going to be your marketing cost. So selling in Japan with a lower average PPC, that could be initial, smaller investment, right? So to kind of, tap your, for your cash flow purposes, obviously. All right. Okay. Move on. So another advantage, as we mentioned earlier, is you don't necessarily need to know Japanese to sell in Japan. That's why I'm selling on Amazon. I'm selling on Rakuten. Rakuten is not the same. Rakuten, as far as I know, you have to learn more. You have to be familiar with the Japanese, the language, the whole, formatting, the design, etc. Amazon Seller Central is entirely in English. And one thing you do need to do is obviously your listings need to be in Japanese. We'll talk about that in a minute. And also customer service. If any of your customers have questions, complaints in Japanese, you need to provide Japanese customer service, right? So what I did is I hired a part-time assistant. At that time he was in college, and funny story, I actually bumped into him at Uniqlo of all places, and he was one of the few people that spoke English. He provided excellent customer service for my family. My baby son at the time needed like a hoodie in size like 2 toddler, and he went above and beyond to help me find it. I'm like, this is a good guy, and maybe I'll ask him, hey, I added him online, and I ended up hiring him part time, and then he helped me with customer service, in Japanese, right? And also dealing with Amazon sometimes. Sometimes there will be issues dealing with Amazon, so you will need some Japanese, but there's always a way around it. Being entrepreneurs, you can hire someone, very, very cheaply. I might add, to do that. Okay. And nowadays, everyone's talking about AI, GPT. I've actually tinkered around with this, and in terms of generating customer reply responses, the quality of the Japanese is actually quite good, because I met up with my assistant recently here in Tokyo. I showed him, ChatGPT. He was blown away. He's like, wow, this Japanese customer email response was written perfectly. So I'm not saying ChatGPT can replace, customer service, but in a pinch, if you're just getting started, you can use this to reduce some of your costs, guys. So these are some ways that you can start selling on Amazon without knowing Japanese. All right. Yeah, use chat. It's not that free anymore. Yeah, I mean, the premium version, GPT-4. But anyways, that's beyond the scope of today's content, right? And or DeepL as well. Everyone's familiar with this. All right, excellent. Okay, another big advantage selling in Amazon Japan is the supply chain. Okay, I actually come from, my second part of my second career was in sourcing supply chain. I was based in Shanghai. For 11 years. I was working for a consulting firm. I ended up being the director of their sourcing division. So supply chain, in terms of the shipping, all you got to do is look at the map, right? From China, if you're manufacturing in China, if you're selling in the U.S., you have to ship if you ship by sea, that container can take 30 to 45 days. If you ship to Japan, it only takes about 7 to 10 days, right? So it's going to arrive a lot faster. It's going to be cheaper. It's closer. And there's no trade war. Knock on wood, there's no trade war between China and Japan. So there's no tariffs that, U.S. has the U.S. tariff, the quote unquote, Trump tariffs, 25%. So you can circumvent that when you sell the same product in Japan. So you can lower your product landed cost. Excuse me. So cheaper and faster shipping from China to Japan if you want to sell to Japan. Right. Okay, number 8, very quickly, in terms of admin logistics, you don't need to register a company in Japan or be based in Japan. This is more for people that are not in Japan. If you have like a US LLC or you have a company registered in UK, you can use that company to sell in Japan. You do, however, need one key partner, that's importer of record. So to legally import to Japan, you need either to have a company with address in Japan or an individual with address in Japan. That's one thing that you need to comply to Japanese law. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Number 9 is compared to Europe, you do not need VAT or GST registration when you start selling in Japan. So that can cut a whole bunch of bureaucracy, a whole bunch of headaches, a whole bunch of costs as well. Obviously, there's consumption tax in Japan. Talking to entrepreneurs and also talking to my Japanese accountants, when you first start out, you do not need to register for a CT number yet. Once you cross a certain threshold, then you do need to register. I think it's around mid 6 figures US, like around 500,000 US dollars. But by the time you get there, I mean, you should be happy that you want to register that because you've had some business success. But starting out the gate, there isn't this additional CapEx, bureaucracy you got to go through. All right. This is not tax advice, guys. This is not legal tax advice. Talk to your tax professional, but from one business owner to another, this is what we're doing to start selling in Japan. So,
there's some questions about
yes.
Japanese business partner. Yeah. Okay.
No, you do not need a business partner per se, but you do need an importer of record. So this is basically an import company that can help you find out about the local regulations, any product compliance that you got to do, as well as pay the duties for you, and then you would pay them. Okay, you would pay the duties and you would pay their fees. So the reason for this is if there's any issues with the product and the Japanese government wants to hold somebody accountable, they want to be able to physically, go after them within the jurisdiction of Japan, right? If it's like a US LLC, they don't have the jurisdiction to do that. So this is one of the differences selling in Japan than some of the other marketplaces. But I mean, yeah, so it makes sense to have an importer of record, right? Should we take the next question as well? Food and alcohol.
Yeah, I think so. About alcohol, food, etc. What certificates, permissions do you need?
Yeah, I am not a compliance expert, so I would recommend that you speak to an importer of record, someone that has experience, because every product category is different. I will touch upon 4 key categories that tend to get greater scrutiny from the Japanese regulators. So we'll get to that in just a minute. All right.
I guess people though that do it. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have partners that can help, and we can cover that a little later as well.
Sure.
Right. And one of the reasons why I put together this e-commerce conference for Amazon sellers in Japan is all of these partners that we're talking about, the compliance, translation, the importers, everybody's going to be there in the same room. So if you have a question about that, you should, you talk to that guy over there, you talk to that lady over there, all your questions are answered. All right. Sorry, that's just a quick plug. Anyway.
Business in Japan, of course, probably has lots of those sorts of people. And certainly
absolutely.
There are not only licenses and approvals you need for food, alcohol, things that are consumed by people,
yes.
but there's a whole process of getting it tested and approved. And
yes.
Importer of record can organize that, or you can organize that with them. But yes, you'll need to definitely do that. And the people who take responsibility for that, the importer of record, are at risk for if there are ever any problems. And that's why you need to look at the cost of an importer of record.
That's right. Exactly. Talk to Jason, use Jason in this valuable community. I mean, I heard there's over 70,000 people here, right? So I'm pretty sure you can find someone if you can't find one by yourself. All right. Excellent. Let's keep moving, guys. The 10th reason for selling in Japan is there are unique marketing channels native to Japan, and you can make a lot of sales at low cost. I won't get too far in detail about this, but everyone here probably has heard of Line. Line is the most popular app, social networking app used by individuals and businesses. And there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do if you are selling on Amazon. For example, product inserts, and anyone that's bought something off of Amazon. A lot of businesses have those QR codes that you can scan, and you can start building an audience. You market to them. You can offer them coupon codes. You can ask them for reviews. You can launch your next product, etc. So there's all these ways that you can do this type of marketing at very low cost, right? Okay, so next, I'd like to share the 7 steps to start selling into Amazon Japan. So if you're still here, I assume there's some interest, and I'll show you what you can do to get started. All right, guys? Okay, so number 1 is to do a product market fit analysis. So this presentation is usually for a existing Amazon seller. Let's say he or she is already selling in the Amazon US or Amazon Europe marketplace. Okay, and if you are already selling, there are certain ways that you can validate the product market fit. You can validate the demand. You can research the keyword search volume. Basically, you're doing your homework to find out your market research. Is my product going to sell in Japan or not? Okay, I'll just offer a couple of tools that you can use. Okay, in our pre-call, Jason and I were talking about the expenses could add up. Some of these tools are at cost, obviously, but many of them are free. So I want to just share with you a couple of tools that you can use if you are interested. Helium 10 is one of the leading Amazon product research tools out there. It is a paid tool, but I believe there's a free trial if you guys want to check it out. And it works for Japan. So you can do keyword research. You can find out how much sales these competitors are making, and you're able to get research Japanese keywords as well. Okay. There's ways to do this research even if you don't know any Japanese. If anyone's interested in that, I will spend another minute on that. If not, then we'll just keep going. Okay. And then also, I also recommend if you are interested in doing some initial research, just go on amazon.co.jp, type in the product that you have in mind, and just look at the listing results. Are people selling this in Japan, or is it a blank slate, right? Just see. And then if you are selling a product in the US, you want to find out, do Japanese people use it or not? Google and even YouTube is an excellent tool, because some of you guys are in Japan, but I think most of you are not. But let's say if you're selling a kitchen product, you can Google a Japanese kitchen. And nowadays, with the beauty of YouTube, there's probably someone that's going to give you like a walkthrough of their Japanese kitchen, right? So you can see like how big is the counter space, and obviously the kitchens are designed differently, and they're a lot smaller than the ones you see in Australia, US, etc. Right? So I mean, the product would need to be tailored if that is one of the considerations. All right.
Yeah. So getting good at research and using Google, the second largest used search platform in the world is YouTube, and also a Google product. But then the up and coming ChatGPT, which of course is plugged into Bing these days, I haven't gone through and downloaded Edge and the various other things you need to do to be able to use it yet. But that's something you don't have to necessarily pay for, is search, knowing how to search. So, but maybe, Gary, why do people use tools like Helium and what is it, Jungle
Scout.
Jungle Scout, all of them? Why do they sign up and pay monthly fees to use these sorts of tools before and during their launching their Amazon businesses?
Yeah. I would say before it's very important. Previously, Amazon did not share search volume data, like keyword search volume data. Now things have changed in the last couple of years. Amazon does share it if you have what they call brand registry. So if you have if you have a trademark brand name, you can register for Amazon brand registry. Amazon will share some of their internal keyword search terms. So if you're selling a water bottle, they'll tell you how much search volume there is for plastic water bottle, glass water bottle, case water bottle, etc. So you can use that to kind of make an intelligent decision whether or not to pursue this product. And you can also see like the top competitors, right? So the main thing these tools like Helium 10 offer you, the entrepreneur, is you can get market research, right? So anytime you want to enter a market, you want to do like a SWOT analysis, right? How many competitors are there? How much sales are they getting, right? How many reviews do they have, right? I want to dive into this keyword. I can do what we call like a reverse ASIN search. This is diving in the weeds, but I can find out which keywords they're ranked for, how much search volume per month each keyword is ranking for. So I know, okay, maybe they're not ranked for certain keywords. There's a gap in the market. If I come in, if I rank for those keywords they're not ranked for, I could potentially get a high placement on page 1 of the Amazon search results. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. But initially, I do recommend that you invest in one of these tools, whether it's Helium 10 or Jungle Scout. I do have a coupon code if anyone's interested. I can share that. And just to be transparent, I am an affiliate of both, so I do get you'll buy me a cup of coffee if you do use the code. But anyways, you don't have to use it. All right. Okay, should we keep going, guys?
Sure.
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. All right. So earlier we had a question about certification for product regulations. Okay. There's 4 key categories in Japan that tend to get greater scrutiny. So if you're selling supplements, if you're selling cosmetics or medical devices or anything that touches food or drink, most likely you need to get some sort of certification for this product. So talk to your import of record to find out the costs and the fees for this. Okay. All right. Also, you need to be aware of the compliance testing and the cost, right? The costs depend on the size of the product and also complexity of the product. So the more parts the product has, like let's say, that same water bottle, you have to test not only the plastic bottle itself, you have to test the cap, you have to test like the O-ring, you probably have to test the handle. All of those things add up, right? So find out from your importer the compliance test required. That way you can do a cost analysis. Is it worthwhile? Okay. Quick personal example is one of the products that I'm selling in the U.S. It's a kitchen product used, for coffee. I did the research for Japan. There was nobody selling. Hey, this is like a blue ocean, right? Fortunately, I talked to the importer and I found out that this product is not legal for consumers in Japan. It can only be used in professional kitchens and cafes and et cetera. It's not for personal use. So thankfully, I talked to the importer of record before I just blindly sent a shipment of this in, because otherwise it may have been stuck at customs, or even worse, get stuck in Amazon's warehouse, and then I have to get everything out and I have to find a way to dispose of it, right? So moral of the story is talk to a compliance expert, talk to your importer about the product before you go in, okay? And yeah, Bern says electronic electric products are regulated. Electric products and products for young children as well. Definitely, if you are considering a product, have that product, get the HS code, HST code as well. That's like the customs universal harmonized tariff code. Get that and then talk to your importer. All right. All right. Pet supplies, I'm not sure. Talk to your importer. All right. Okay. So let's keep going, guys. The next thing to do is if you're already selling in another Amazon marketplace, you can transfer your brand registry. I'm not going to talk too much about this. If you do have a trademark, there's certain benefits, certain advantages that you can get. You can unlock. If there's like hijackers, if there's someone that's already selling your product in Japan, you can get those listings taken down very quickly if you have brand registry. This is some of the stuff that Amazon sellers has to deal with. I mean, there's like hijackers, there's like, your listings may get suspended, etc. So it's good to have what they call brand registry. Okay. All right. After that, step 5 is to get your translations done. So to sell in Japan, you gotta have your listings in Japanese. I recommend, don't just Google Translate it, or don't even rely on ChatGPT, because your listing, it's like the front end of your store, right? It's going to affect your conversion rate if it's poorly done, and it's not going to build trust if it looks horrible, right, to a Japanese person. So definitely recommend you hire a professional, native Japanese speaker, and someone ideally that has experience with Amazon SEO and copywriting. Okay. After that, localization. So beyond the translation, the look and feel of the product listing. Okay, you have to make sure it looks, it feels, it matches the Japanese consumer, their expectation. So in this example with cosmetics brand Maybelline, a US brand from New York, you can see with their Japanese Amazon product page, you can see they've localized not only the language, but also the model, right? Standard of beauty in Asia, in Japan especially, is different from the West, right? I mean, the West, people like, very tan models, but in Japan, fair skin is the standard of beauty, right? So you can see they made that localization. And then also, I think everyone is familiar with Japanese, certain words you want to keep in English, right? Because, it carries more cachet, maybe it's the cool factor. So you can see in your listing, fashion brow, ultra fluffy, but you still have the Japanese, like ultra fluffy, right? So you have like the Japanese localization into it as well. So definitely localize not just your product listings, but also the images, the packaging as well. That's something else that you have to consider, the product packaging, right? So let's keep going. And then in step 7, the last step is get ready to sell. We talked earlier, if you're already selling in another Amazon marketplace, you can carry over your reviews, but that's one big advantage to sell into Amazon Japan. All right, so these are the 7 steps, guys. Any questions on that? And I'll take a pause and if Jason and Matt have any comments.
I guess people that are interested, haven't done this before, trying to remember all 7. Can they get a copy of this? I know we're going to do a recording, but
yeah, definitely. I'm happy to share a copy of my slide deck with Jason and the team. So if that helps, yeah. See if we have a question about drop shipping.
Drop shipping. Do you have a? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you have a summary slide of the 7 steps again.
I should. Let's just quickly recap, guys. So just for refreshing our memories, number 1 is the product market fit analysis, to kind of do the market research and minimize your risks. There's tools out there. There's free tools out there. Number 2, check your product regulations, 4 key categories to pay extra scrutiny to: cosmetics, supplements, medical devices, anything that touches food or drink. Number 3, compliance and testing. Make sure to do your homework, guys. Number 4, transfer your trademark and brand registry to Japan to take care of those hijackers and also to protect your listing. Number five, oops. Number five, get your translations done. Number six, localization. Number seven, get ready to sell, move your reviews from the other Amazon into Japan. All right.
Thank you. Maybe some answers to the question.
Yeah.
Drop shipping. I mean, how does this differ to drop shipping? There's fulfilled by Amazon and there's fulfilled by merchant. Can you explain those?
Drop shipping is a little different. With fulfilled by Amazon, the beauty is you create your own brand, your private label brand. So you take ownership of that. The biggest advantage is we are seeing business owners, certain business owners successfully sell their business, sell their brand at the end. And that is the biggest payday for the entrepreneur. That's going to be more than the salary you pay yourself. So the end game for many of these FBA sellers is to sell their business. With drop shipping, that's not really possible because you're selling other people's brands. You don't really have that equity that you could sell. Drop shipping also, it's kind of like, I'll be totally transparent. I've never done drop shipping. It's just a model that I think it used to be very viable maybe 10 years ago, but now I don't see it as viable as before. I mean, basically you're just doing like the marketing of it and you can't really have much say in the product design, customization, etc. So that's my take on that. All right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there over the last decade who've been selling the concept and the training to do FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. And I think all of them, that entire concept is not about drop shipping. It's about owning the brand that you have. Obviously, as you start it, if you need cash flow, I mean, your first thoughts are about how can I find a product, start making some sales, get some money, have it all, cover the costs of doing it all. But I think very quickly you want to make more money, and owning your own product does that immediately. But as Gary says, the goal there is that as it makes you more money, it becomes more attractive to others who will then buy it off you based on its revenue and what you've built. And so Fulfilled by Amazon is all about creating that value. And what we're here today to talk about is that the US market and other markets are mature. It's harder to do that. There's probably tens of thousands of people who've been doing it for a very long time.
Oh, there's millions. I think there's about 3 million registered sellers in US, and I mean, there's only 170,000 active in Japan.
Oh, I mean, like seven-figure. I mean, big sellers.
Yeah.
But in Japan, it's easier. It's easier to get started. It's easier at every stage of those 7 steps, if you follow them, to gain the type of traction that's taught out there. If you've been looking at courses or YouTube videos or whatever, all of that is really difficult now in the US Amazon. And some of the things that are difficult are not as difficult in Japan. But my core question here is for people here listening to this today. I mean, how much do you need to get started, and how much do you need really, honestly, after you get started, helps you become comfortable with the 7 steps you've just mentioned? All those things are done. The products are starting to sell. You know that you can do this. You're making a little bit of money.
Yeah.
How much do you need to get to that level, and then how much do you need to then take it to the next level? Because you need money, right? And the second step, you'll be able to use some of the money, or you'll be able to work towards the business covering all of that money. But from my limited experience and paid courses and study of FBA and making money through selling on Amazon, it's a big balance of your knowledge, how you execute these 7 steps and more, the tools you use, the ongoing costs, the cost of sale, the cost of you producing this business, what level of product pricing you have, and I can ask lots of detailed questions, but how much do you need to get started, and then what do you need to look forward to move to the next level?
Yeah, excellent questions. I saw that, I think it was Rod also had a question. What are the typical costs for each of the 7 steps? How much do you recommend as capital for starters in Amazon in Japan? I can tell you my first product in Japan was not a very expensive product. I sold it for about 2,100 yen, and I sourced it for only about $3 US. So like maybe 400 or 500 yen. My first order, I only placed a couple hundred units, less than 500 units. I negotiated with the Chinese factory. So my first order, obviously every product is different, right? But I was able to find a good gap in the market. My first order was probably like 1,000, 1,500 US dollars. And then obviously I invested in marketing. I think all in, your mileage may vary. I would say to be safe, I would budget at least 5,000 US dollars to 10,000 US dollars to start. So what did that include? That includes your first order from your factory. That includes the shipping cost, the customs duties, paying for your IOR, compliance costs. That could be a big one, depending on your product. If it's something that's very complicated, electronics, that could cost several $1,000s, right? But if something's simple, maybe it doesn't require a lot of and then you would have to invest in certain software, software beginning 10 or restaurant. You don't need to pay for it forever. I mean, once you get your business up and running, you can cut that. And then when you want to launch your next product, you want to do market research, then you can use it, pay as you go. So it's not necessarily ongoing expense in that respect. So again, I would say I budget about 5,000 to 10,000 US, depending on your comfort. All right. And Jason, I know you also mentioned about like ongoing, one of the big questions a lot of you guys are asking is, hey, when I start this business, can I pay myself, right? Can I pay myself a salary? Or when can I pay myself? I'll put it this way. When I first got started on Amazon, I didn't quit my day job. All right. I was still working my day job back when I was in Shanghai. I still had my sourcing job. I was working, late nights, early mornings, weekends. I put in some extra time on my side business. And then once I got it up and running, once I scaled it up, north of 6 figures. And then I was able to draw some of the revenue out to pay myself. So what I mean is, if you do have a stable job, that's good. Don't just jump out of the plane, with no parachute, right? Keep your day job. What I'm saying is, cut out some of the Netflix time, or, if you have some time that you're not, very, putting it to good use, hey, you could be growing your business in that time, right? That's what I mean. Once you're able to scale it to a certain level and you're comfortable taking out that money, you can replace your day job salary, then I would consider quitting my job. Okay. So I'm not saying that so again, this takes work. This is not easy. You have to work harder than, the next person that's just, clocking in 9 to 5, right? But if you do want to create your own business, that's what it takes. And this is not just me. I've interviewed over 200 7-figure sellers. I've created 7 online events. That's the common thread. I mean, and the first product, guys, and I was talking to Jason offline, the first product, most times, it's not going to be a home run. It's not going to be a smashing success. It could be a failure, right? But look at it this way. It could be like your college tuition money, right? That one entrepreneur e-commerce 101 class, right? Maybe you paid $3,000 for that first shipment, but hey, it didn't sell that well, but hey, you learned the whole process, right? You learn how to set up your Amazon account. You learn how to put up your listing. You learn how to set up your PPC campaigns. You learn how to source a product from China. Even if you didn't do it the right way, hey, you learn, right? So the second time, you're just going to get better, right? So I think the model is either you win or you learn, right? And, I've made many, many mistakes throughout my career, in talking to all the entrepreneurs. No one is like, no one sinks every shot they make, right? Even Michael Jordan, like he missed like more than half his shots, but he's still like the greatest basketball player in the world, right? So yeah, just some of my insights to share if that helps.
So maybe you
and I
want to go
think,
back to the.
go on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go on.
I was just going to go back to Alex's question first. Sorry, about Sole Trader, because you mentioned like you didn't need a Japanese business partner, obviously.
Yeah. Alex, do you need to register as a freelance or anything to sell on Amazon, or maybe after earning some money or sole business? I first started, I registered a company in Hong Kong. I don't know where you are, Alex. If you're in the US, you can do an LLC. I do recommend having some sort of company, some sort of business, because it just makes sense. It makes financial sense, in terms of liability, et cetera. I'm sure Jason can tell you a lot more about that as well. I do recommend having some sort of business. Okay. Should we just go down the list?
Yep, I think so.
Oh, okay. So Daniel asks, any particular preference, Jungle Scout versus Helium 10? I've used both. I think it's kind of like the Coke versus Pepsi argument. I mean, there's a lot of similarities. Some people say one tool is more accurate than the other. I probably used Jungle Scout longer time. I'm currently, Helium 10 is one of our sponsors, and they support Japan as well. And yeah, so I think it's Coke versus Pepsi. Try out, who you like better. Get a flavor. I think both of them have free trials, so use both. Gene says, what would you recommend as a good number for your first batch order to test out your product? What's the typical minimum number of units for wholesaler in China to sell to an individual? It really depends. Depends on the product. Depends on how you negotiate. For Japan, the product that I did, the first order, I was able to negotiate about 200 units, 300 units. So, the first order was about $1,000. It depends on how you negotiate that. 500 is kind of the benchmark in terms of a minimum order quantity, or MOQ. Yeah, and we answered Rod's question, I believe, already. Should we move on? We talk a little bit about the event if people are still interested, or any other questions? Jason, Matt?
I think there's some other questions in there. What would you recommend as a good number of first batch order?
Yeah, we just addressed that about
that one.
300 to 500. Gene's question. Yeah, Gene Ren.
So to just expand on that, if that means what, I mean, there's a balance here, right? What is the cost of your product? What are you going to sell it at? And the volumes that you expect to make from that, and the profitability that will allow you to feed back to that. And of course, the cost of advertising to promote that, and your ability to buy economies of scale it at a cheaper price, because you can buy a larger amount and have it sent to Amazon and fulfilled by Amazon in a larger amount. And that balance sounds simple, but from my understanding, your choice of product cost, margin you make, your buying price, the products you'll need to investigate that before, after, and during, the marketing costs that you'll need to do in the beginning upfront to drain all of your money, and then hopefully then as you start making sales, that will be probably 60-70% of your revenue to drive back into that to make sure that you continue that rise in sales, makes the entire chain a wobbly literally a chain of things that if you don't know how to control and what you should be doing in every step from the product type and pricing that you choose through to the way that you promote it on a daily basis, that wiggly chain will cost you a lot of money and you won't be able to get off the ground. And my understanding from doing lots of courses and study of FBA, it may have been easier in the beginning. And let's leave COVID and shipping time and that sort of stuff out at costs. It's really hard to understand what is your price point that you should be aiming for the end user cost, and then going back to where you will be able to source a product that will make it profitable enough for you to do that. How much can you afford to buy up front? And then how are you going to let people know that that product exists even in Amazon? Internal SEO and internal pursuit of the buy box, as they call it, to external SEO and external promotion of that product, because external stuff coming into Amazon is heavily weighted as good. I mean, the entire thing is not simple. I understand that many parts of that chain are simplified or less expensive because it's Amazon Japan. But can you tell us, I mean, to me, a realistic, I worked it out, you would need to get off the ground, positioning on what I understood as a product pricing and an early realistic amount of product that I could buy, not including the monthly cost of the course of not courses, the products I need to understand my Amazon business end to end and Seller Central costs per month as well. I estimated $50,000 to $60,000 I needed to risk and be happy to lose, plus ongoing costs of online products, online services that I needed to manage that. Would you say that's fair? And to set expectations for people in this audience, this is not something you can get away with easily as a newbie, with people across the world doing this for a very, very long time, and okay, a lot less of them are doing it in Amazon Japan. But to me, it sounded a lot more difficult, and you're having to understand from choice of product through where am I going to get it, how much can I afford to buy at once in the beginning, through to how is it going to get to Amazon, what will they charge me after a certain amount of time if it hasn't been sold, how will I let people know that it exists on Amazon, because it probably won't show up if I'm a nobody. So the minimum will make it show up, but the minimum, how much does that cost? And then people like Burek, BIJ member, and a person who's done it himself and is now doing it for other people, how much are those sorts of people, or how do you get the skills to make that product slide to the top so that when people search anything, it shows up where it should, not just exactly for that product, but in every other way that Amazon presents products. And all this time, you want to measure it. So there's 3, 4, 5 products that you should be plugging into your Seller Central. And hey, you're starting to make some money, you should probably use another product that feeds that information into your accounting system to make sure you're not losing it all in tax. I mean, to be realistic, yes, 10, 15 grand, give it a shot. Doesn't work, you've learnt so much. The next shot will be, maybe you'll spend a bit more than that, but you'll spend it very effectively because you've learnt on the first trip. But this is not something you can just drop ship, right? I don't take much risk at all. Someone else will pay the money to buy it, and then I'll take the risk and send it to them, and they have to wait. That's why we're fulfilling by Amazon, right? It's already in Japan. It goes quickly. Anything outside Japan before COVID, it was still not quick enough. Since COVID, forget about it unless they're someone who likes AliExpress and they wait 3-6 weeks for it. People who buy on Amazon want it tomorrow, right? So these are the sorts of things that I think about when I think about selling on Amazon. If people attend your 2-day event, are these sorts of things, if not covered, are these sorts of things that are able to be asked of the experts? I think you've got 12 plus speakers coming. I mean, I'd love to be there. Are these sorts of questions or information, are they going to come up? People are going to be able to ask these sorts of things.
Yeah, I think all of those are valid points, Jason. I think to use like a food analogy, I'm all about food. It's like, you're at the buffet, right? And then you see like the salad, you see the steak, you see the sushi, you see the dessert. You see everything, you try to eat everything at once, you're going to get overwhelmed, right? But if I, dibble on a salad first, I get some of the, the starters, and before I go in, heavy, right, with like the prime rib, etc. If I take it, one step at a time, that's more tolerable, right? What you said, that could happen, right? We've seen these mistakes. I've made these mistakes. My biggest mistake probably cost me like $25,000. I was overly aggressive. I placed an order for sleeping bags. I over customized them. I only relied on like the tools. At the end, it bit me in the ass, right? So I lost that. But, am I gonna give up? No, right? After that, I had more success and I was able to recoup that money back and more. Obviously, I'm not saying you should or should not do this, guys. I can only share my personal experience. It is an opportunity, but it may not be for everyone, depending on your risk tolerance, depending on how familiar you are, how willing you are to negotiate with these suppliers. But every step of the way, there's ways that you can cap your risk, right? So that's why, to Gene's original question, I think Gene was asking about the initial order size, because we kind of have like, the lean startup methodology, a minimum viable product, right? I want to, what is the minimum order that I can make to validate my product so I can, get that product into the Amazon warehouse. That's why I would think, we can try to cut that initial order, from having to order 1,000 units, let's just order 200 or 300 units. If we sell out very quickly, that's actually not so bad, because, hey, I just validated the product, my listing is selling, I'm going to quickly place a reorder and we're going to, get ready to run, right? But if it doesn't sell, okay, I'm out a couple grand, but, I learned how to sell my listing. Hey, I saw there was another product that I discovered. Let me see if I want to go into that, right? So you're going to have, for an inventory business, okay, I don't want to like talk for, I could talk about this for a long time. I think for an e-commerce business, just to be transparent, you're going to have to reinvest a lot of the money back into inventory, because that's how you scale, right? So it is a very capital-intensive business. There are risks involved. Many of the big sellers, the stress does add up, and then they're eager to sell their business. But when they do sell their business, that's it could be a 7-figure payday, right? And when the cash hits the bank, that's a good feeling, right? So I don't know if that answers all your concerns, but that's my take on that.
No, that's great. I think we have some other questions. What are your thoughts on Amazon Vine program?
Amazon Vine was free for a while. This is a way to get additional reviews. I used Amazon Vine to help me launch my product in Japan. The product I launched was actually brand new to Japan because it was in the outdoor toys category. In the U.S. market, it was already saturated. I launched the same product at the same time in the U.S. as Japan. Japan was able to take off, but U.S. fell flat because competition level was too high. That's another reason why I feel I'm more confident with Japan. Buying program now, it's at cost. So if you do need the initial review boost, it might be worthwhile. But a few years ago, it was free. So it is a good way to get reviews. How much does Amazon warehousing cost? I think the question is Amazon fees. Amazon fees are creeping up. It depends on your product category. There is an Amazon free fee calculator tool that you can access. Just Google it. Roughly speaking, I would allot about 1/3 of your product retail cost to go back into Amazon fees. Okay, 1/3, which is high, but you're getting the prime real estate, you're getting the prime customers, and you're getting a very much higher conversion rate compared to if you started your own Shopify store and you had to drive you have to do marketing and drive traffic to that, because the good thing about Amazon is the traffic is already there, but roughly 1/3 of the cost.
So there's Seller Central, which is what, 3,000 yen something a month.
I think it's about $40 US, or it's 4,000 or maybe 5,000 yen.
And then I think Zanlopoulos asked about warehousing, but it's not warehousing cost, it's their percentage.
Fulfillment.
Right?
Yeah, it's the fulfillment cost, it's their listing fees.
Let's say let's say you don't sell anything. You have a product that sells for $100 each.
Yeah.
And you put, I don't know, 10 in there, and none of them sold.
Yeah.
How long before you're charged, or you need to remove them?
These are called long-term storage fees. Long-term storage fees. It depends on the seasonality. Previously in Japan, it wasn't that bad, but it's when it comes to the peak season, then they charge higher rates. So I have to check. I mean, I believe it's about 6 months or so, but they keep changing this because it depends on their warehouse availability. So yes, that's something you have to keep your eye on.
Yeah, I have done some level of consulting around selling e-commerce, and the companies I was speaking to about a new product were also saying to me, hey, we need to move this stuff out of Amazon. Can you help us do that? I mean, there seems to be some level of risk. You can't just keep it in there forever.
Yeah, Amazon doesn't it's not a warehouse. I mean, if you do want to keep inventory, don't keep it there. Keep it in a third-party logistics warehouse or 3PL. There's service providers out there for that. That would be at significantly less cost.
Right, and those nice acronyms, 3PL and FBA and FBM, fulfilled by merchant.
Yeah.
If you
we should have a cheat sheet with all of these abbreviations, just
exactly.
to decrypt all of it.
So if you did have a good 3PL, third-party logistics, that means warehousing and ability to ship.
Yeah.
If you had that, even as a secondary, after the 6 months runs out, your backup plan, or for certain products because of
I wouldn't send 6 months of inventory to Amazon. I would put 2-3 months, because remember, you don't want to place a huge order, and especially with China being so close, you don't have to place a huge order, because if you want to stock, you can restock it much quicker from China to Japan than China to US. So you can actually reduce the size of your order. So going back to your concern, Jason, about the initial CapEx, right? The order size, you can actually, rather than US, I want to have 4 months of inventory. In Japan, let's say I want to have 2.5 months of inventory, because by the time I'm in 1 month, I'll place a reorder, and then I'll be able to fulfill it in time. The other option is to cut down those long-term storage fees is, rather than shipping them direct to Amazon FBA warehouse, ship it to your Japan 3PL, your third-party logistics warehouse, and then you can drip feed from there into Amazon, and that way you can avoid those long-term storage fees.
Yeah, and of course shipping time is improved between China and Japan compared to China and US. Yeah. But actual manufacturing or placed order, and when you get it from China, has increased significantly, and it was never great for the average new person before COVID. So you need to balance that whole how much I'm going to buy, when, where's it going to go, how long will it need to sit there if I can't sell it.
Yeah.
that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And of course, those things don't matter if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how long it's going to take you to sell 1, 10, or 100 of them. So when you say don't hold don't hold more than 2 to 3 months of inventory, a lot of new people are thinking, I have no idea whether I have to store 1, 10, or 100.
That's
So
why
they
we
don't
use
know.
those, to your earlier question, that's why we use the tools like Helium 10, because you can estimate based on the competitors how much they're selling. So if they're selling, 500 units a month, if you estimate you can have a similar placement as them, you can use that number as a metric. So 3 times 5, that's 1,500 units. So if you want to have 3
Right,
months of
but
inventory,
in between that assumption is how can you logically and realistically get between being brand new and putting a new product in Amazon and the products that show up on these tools as the ones already selling it. How are you going to sell, and how effective are you going to be in your marketing to get you to sell as close to what they're selling as possible? You need to turn those knobs. From my experience, there is a wall of knobs in front of you. You need to understand how to
that's true. That's true.
clean,
I
and
mean, nobody
all
ever
of
said
them
this
are
was
linked
easy.
to
Nobody
your
said it
money.
was easy, right? But I mean, the people that can't turn those knobs, they're the ones that are running the businesses, right? So
and in practice, you will never know unless you begin. So you just need to say, I'm willing to lose $10,000
well, I'm
worth
willing
of stock,
to win. I'm
or
willing to
hopefully
learn.
a lot less than that, but I'm going to have to
Yeah.
burn money in placement in making sure they rise to the top of Amazon, and that I'm understanding the sales that I have and the sales that others are having.
Yeah.
And if I can't sell them all, I've got an exit plan.
Yep.
And the net profit I imagine from that outlay of buying those products is, and am I okay with that for the learning experience? So that's my warning. That's my on the box.
Fair enough.
Buyer
It's good to have,
beware.
2 sides of the coin.
Knowledge is
right?
power, though, and this is a little bit of knowledge. Don't let it make you run away with your Amazon plans. But to get more knowledge, to be more confident, you can, of course, attend the 2-day workshop in Tokyo with Gary, where it's not just Gary, it's about 12 people, including some BIJ members who are speaking, I understand, from looking at the list. Don't jump into it. And I would say don't jump into it without knowing what you're doing, and beware and be comfortable with spending money to learn this process. But why not? Why not, if you have that money, I don't know, 3 to 5 million yen, I'm going to use that money to choose a product that I have some passion and understanding of. I'm going to research it. I'm going to understand it from the top sellers who are probably outside Japan, and I'm going to do it better than them. And even if I fail, by the end of, I'll give myself this length of time and this amount of money, I'm going to know how to do this. And then I'll be able to go back into it and do it even better. So, thank you very much, Gary. That's been a great, in a nutshell, understanding of Amazon, selling on Amazon, and what it might mean to do that in Japan. So I appreciate it.
Gary,
thank you for having me.
I think you said you had some coupon codes for Helium 10, and if you want to mention that too, like maybe that'll help people out who are thinking about starting or whatever as well.
Let me see if I can find that. Just give me a minute, but can I spend 2 minutes to tell them about this conference?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
For sure.
Okay, thank you. All right. So if you are interested in this, learning more, I created the first ever e-commerce conference for Amazon sellers in Japan. Nobody's ever done this before, not even in Japanese. And this will happen April 4th to the 5th in Tokyo. The main goal for this conference is to teach you the complete turnkey solution, how to sell in Amazon Japan, specifically Japan, not US. I'll be frank with you. if you have not been selling yet, maybe this is not for you. But if you are selling in the US or are selling in Europe and you want to take that product into Japan, this definitely is for you. Okay, the reason is because we have successful 8-figure brand owners selling in Japan, 7-figure brand owners selling in Amazon Japan, and they're going to open up the playbook to show you how to do that step by step. And then we're also going to offer connections, right? So we talked about import of records, we talked about warehousing, 3PLs, we talked about translators, etc. Every single one of these experts along the way, they're going to be in the same. So if you have a question, you just talk to him. You have a question about compliance, you talk to her, right? About your alcohol product, your food product, etc. So you can get all your questions answered, A to Z, all right? And also some of the common mistakes that sellers make. So this will be a 2-day event, and it's going to happen during the cherry blossom season, everyone's favorite time of year in Japan. If you're here already, or if you're thinking about coming here, this is the best time. We're also doing a social event underneath like Hanami in the evening as well. So we have 8-figure brand owners. We have Amazon speaking at this event. They don't speak at many events. So I was able to get Amazon to come speak. Jeff Cohen, he is their tech evangelist. He's flying in from Seattle to Tokyo to speak. There's importer of records, third-party compliance, how to import successfully, 10 secrets to success from 10 years selling on Amazon Japan, and also the roadmap to selling $965,000, $263 in Amazon Japan from sellers that are actually doing this right now. I handpicked all these speakers. I don't just let just anybody come speak. All right, and there's also going to be mastermind. So if if you're like Jason, you have questions about how to minimize your capital, how to optimize, how to make sure my listing is going to be displayed on the page, right? How am I going to do that? That's the goal, right? I mean, being able to get FaceTime with other sellers, walking you through this every step of the way. All right, so it's going to be a 2-day event. That's day 1. Day 2, we're also going to talk about how to make your product Japan ready, SEO, PPC. We're also going to talk about Japanese Amazon strategy, localization. Helium 10 is going to be there, keyword research, product research, like all of these things, like which categories are more competitive, less competitive. We'll be able to answer all those questions. And I always think, the value of in-person, I mean, like virtual trainings like this are great, but in person, beyond the conference, over your coffee break, you can see what other sellers are doing, what they're asking. We're also going to have a networking event underneath the cherry blossom tree. All right. So yeah, I don't want to ramble on too long about this. So if you are interested, check it out. Jason and Matt has a link for you guys. And then we have the coupon code set up for you guys